Our first reader moved to Chicago from suburban Philadelphia in January of last year for what she thought would be only 4 months. She has an MFA in creative nonfiction from the New School of Social Research and has been published in the Philadelphia Daily News, Lilith, and Jewish Exponent. She has recently jumped into the city's live lit scene with performances at Story Lab, Is This a Thing?, Story Sessions, Homewood Stories, 10x9, and now Tuesday Funk. Please give a warm welcome to Ann Abel.
I got a belated birthday card from my mother 3 weeks after my 41st birthday. To our wonderful daughter was scripted on the front in gold, above a bouquet of pastel flowers. Inside, in my mother's black scrawl, "Dear Anne, I was only 22 when you were born. I didn't want to have you because I had other things I wanted to do. But you helped me raise your 2 sisters, and that might come in handy as you raise your sons. Love, Mom." My mother had been waging guerrilla warfare on me my whole life. She never missed an opportunity to attack me, and when she wasn't attacking me, she was withholding. As a result, I'd battled depression for decades. I talked to a therapist weekly, cycled through medications, and had even undergone electroconvulsive shock treatment. For the most part, I managed to keep myself upright. But each time she struck, it devastated me. I don't know how long I'd been face down in the bed when my 12-year-old son Joseph came into the room. "Mommy, are you okay?" I sat up on the bed and shook my head just enough to acknowledge his question. "Is it Grandma?" I nodded. My mother's mean spirit was nothing new. We'd been through this before. "Are you going to Johnny's game?" Joseph and I had been planning to walk over to his brother's varsity soccer game later in the afternoon. "I'm not going anywhere." Joseph stood in the doorway and didn't say anything. And when I turned away and stared ahead at the window in front of me, he left, closing the door softly behind him. I focused on a bare skeletal branch stretching across the window panes. I was tired, so tired of everything. Tired of hating my mother. I concentrated on breathing in and breathing out and pictured Joseph sitting in the stands at the soccer game, worrying about his mom. Throwing my legs over the edge of the bed, I moved toward the closet, pulled on a pair of jeans and a sweater, blotted my eyes and nose with face powder, and stared into the mirror to see how I looked. My jaw was hanging, my eyelids, puffed from tears, were halfway shut. I was still at the mirror when Joseph returned. "Mommy, I think we have to put Whiskers to sleep." Whiskers was Joseph's 4-year-old gerbil. 3 months earlier, Whiskers had undergone surgery to remove a tumor from his right front paw. But unfortunately, the tumor had reappeared. The vet told us she could amputate, but advised against it. Even if he made it through surgery, his quality of life would be dismal with only 3 paws. She had suggested that we take Whiskers home until the tumor became too cumbersome. I looked at Joseph slouching in front of me. It was 10 minutes before 6 on a Friday. The vet would soon be closed. I grabbed the phone from the night table next to me. If it had to be done, I didn't want to prolong the ordeal until Monday. When the reception answered the phone, my voice faltered, and I slowed my words, hoping that by concentrating on my enunciation, I could stifle my tears. But I didn't. I felt out of control and embarrassed. However, she accepted my tears for a terminal gerbil as normal and promised they'd stay open for us. I grabbed my coat, Joseph got Whiskers, and we rushed for the car. I concentrated on navigating the traffic's rush hour knots. Beside me in this passenger seat, Joseph was whimpering. Joseph, Whiskers has had a long life. You loved him and took very good care of him. Joseph nodded and swallowed a sob. I know, Mommy, but it's still sad. I'm going to miss him. Joseph, it is sad. It's very sad, but he's not going to know it's happening. He won't feel anything. When Joseph had first told me about Whiskers' tumor, I felt compelled to take care of it immediately. When my children get sick, I take them to the doctor right away. Whiskers was no exception. A creature's health and comfort shouldn't depend on someone else's convenience. In his first night home after surgery, I had drifted off to sleep, counting up the healthy brood under my roof. Joseph sat frozen and silent, staring straight ahead through the windshield. I didn't know what else to say, and the rest of the 15-minute trip passed without another word. There were only 2 cars in the parking lot when we arrived, and a woman in cranberry pink scrubs greeted us from behind her counter with a sympathetic smile and motioned us toward the empty waiting room. Holding Whiskers' tank firmly on his lap, Joseph hunched forward and stared at the gray wall in front of him. I put my arm around him and massaged his neck. My hands and feet were cold and my shoulders tight. I tried not to think about the gold-scripted words, "To our wonderful daughter." The receptionist came to usher us to the examining room, and I pulled back, hesitating. But when Joseph jumped up, instinctively I followed. The vet scooped the trembling Whiskers out of the tank and cupped him in her hands. Rubbing the back of his head with her index finger and cooing down at him, she fingered his right paw and manipulated the tumor. I hoped she'd look up at us and have another option. But she stooped down a notch to be eye level with Joseph and said, "He's had a very good and very long life. He won't feel any pain. His life will be good until the end, and he'll be very happy in heaven." I looked at the gerbil nestled in the vet's hand, almost envious that his suffering was over. Joseph nodded. His body was locked and his eyes focused on Whiskers. The vet smiled at me sadly and left, taking Whiskers with her. When the door closed, Joseph spun around and threw himself into me, burrowing his head in the bosom of my down jacket. We held onto each other and cried. I could have sobbed there with him forever. It was Joseph who moved away first. He wiped his eyes on the sleeves of his jacket until I found a box of Kleenex behind the examining table. After going through half a box, we decided we'd be composed enough to make it through the waiting room. We got into the car and looked at each other. I leaned toward Joseph, putting my arm around his shoulders and stroking his hair. We found another box of Kleenex and passed it back and forth. We cocooned in our car, camouflaged by the dark. Joseph and I held hands, me squeezing his and him squeezing mine. With each clench, I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and tried not to see the black scrawl of my mother's pen. "Do you want to get another gerbil, Joseph?" I asked after a while, thinking this might lessen his grief. "Mommy, no. I can't just replace Whiskers with another gerbil." I smiled, moved by the depth of his feelings. Joseph agreed when I suggested we go home. The house was dark and empty when we pulled into the driveway. I turned off the ignition, but neither of us got out of the car, and our crying began again. The motion lights on the garage turned on and off. "Mommy, are you sad about Grandma?" "Yes, Joseph. I'm sad about Whiskers and Grandma. And Joseph, I'm sad about everything." He reached across the front seat and put his hand in mine. Mommy, we're your family now, and we love you. His words deepened my sob, and I tightened the wrap of my hand around his. Let's go inside, I said. I spent the rest of the evening waiting for everyone else to come home, putting dinner together, and occasionally checking on Joseph. At 9 o'clock, I trudged into the bathroom to brush my teeth. One more hurdle, and I was done. As I picked up my toothbrush and looked into the mirror, I fought to see my own swollen eyes and not the icy stare of my mother. Mommy, I already know by heart 2 blessings for my bar mitzvah, Joseph said, appearing in the bathroom doorway. Do you want to hear them? His lips turned up in a tentative smile, and he was shifting his weight from leg to leg, probably wondering if I was going to chase him out. On another night, I might have told Joseph to wait until I had finished brushing my teeth, or until I was in bed. But this wasn't another night. I couldn't bring back his gerbil, but I could listen to his blessings. Uh-huh, I gargled, wondering how after such a traumatic afternoon, he had found the fortitude to study for a bar mitzvah 9 months away. Pulling back his shoulders and lifting his head, Joseph took position in the bathroom threshold. Baruch atah Adonai, he sang, looking me in the eyes, and a smile spread across the face of this son who just a few hours earlier had been my fellow mourner. I lowered the toothbrush from my mouth, swallowed the toothpaste, and leaned on the sink. His voice was so sweet. I had never before heard these melodies anywhere but in the comfort of the synagogue. The light from the ceiling bulbs seemed to wrap around him, and the glaring image of my mother in the foreground of my mind squeezed to the background and faded to a ghost. I imagined Joseph the morning of his bar mitzvah, and I spanned his transformation from the newborn bag of refluxes I had carried home from the hospital to this son who had come to my bathroom and sung poetry one sad Friday night.